What's up, ladies and gents? Welcome to the Go Long Show here on the Go Long Podcast Network. I'm Tyler Dunn here with Jim Monis. It is a pleasure to have you here with us on the podcast, listening, watching, wherever, however you do so. And hopefully you're a subscriber to golongtd.com. That's where you can get all of our long form coverage, a ton up there. The 2024 season preview series of features. Michael McCambridge has his Into Thin Air series on the Kansas City Chiefs, gunning for a three-peat, never done in the Super Bowl era. I've got a three-part series on the New York Giants. One giant leap. Is this the team that is going to shock the football world? I can't wait to ask the co-host here, Jim Monis, what he thinks about those Giants. But that's at the site as well for our subscribers. Some exclusive conversations with Joe Shane, Shea Tierney, Daniel Jones, Devin Singletary, a host of sources there around the Giants. Learned a lot, and also I just love getting into the weeds of how these football teams are built, how they're run, how you can compare one regime to the next. You know, Jim, at Go Long, I've spent a lot of ink kind of detailing how everything can go wrong. You know, when you lift up that hood, it can be pretty ugly on some of these teams. You know, you'll hear somebody refer to Mike Zimmer as Satan. You know, that happened at Go Long. And Matt Patricia, not exactly the most authentic of the bunch. Brian Flores in the news lately. We had that story on Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa going at it halftime, Dolphins Titans. You know, at that time, you know, when that lawsuit came out, and most of sports media is kind of piling on the Dolphins because you do see Brian Flores' record, and you think that he might have a racial discrimination suit here. Talking to people in that organization, they said, no, there is something deeper here. And then you learn that it was basically Flores or Tua. One of them got to go. You're going to keep the quarterback. So that's why they did what they did. My point being, the underbelly can always be pretty ugly, but the underbelly of an NFL organization can also tell you when everything is about to go right for a team. And man, the comparison it's not clean, Jim, but a lot of Detroit Lions parallels here in terms of a meticulous rebuild, looking for a certain type of player, the correct hierarchy, something we talk a lot about, Jim. Ownership, GM, coach, just smart people in charge in terms of Joe Shane, Brian Dable, the process of scouting completely rehauled. I mean, look at the scouting department too, what they had before and what they have now. You know, Brandon Brown, Chris Rossetti, Dennis Hickey, who I'm sure you remember. There are smart people running the Giants, and you just haven't really seen it yet. Right? The first year was strange. 9 wins, a playoff win. Brian Dable deserves Coach of the Year. It's crazy that they got to the playoffs with that team, but they didn't really get to run their offense in full. And then year 2, just an Armageddon of injuries. It's you go through 4 kickers and 3 quarterbacks, and you're signing Justin Pugh off the couch to play almost 800 snaps. I get it. No excuses. We don't want to do that on this show. I won't go down that road, but it was bad. It was bad. And yet you still had Tommy DeVito beating Jordan Love and the Packers. You still had the Giants almost beating the Rams. If Tyrod Taylor doesn't throw behind Saquon on that 2-pointer, they almost beat the Bills earlier in the season. They did beat the Eagles. So I think there were some promising signs there in the type of player the Giants were trying to find. And now you finally get to see a Brian Dable offense in full. Now you get to see the players that Joe Shane and that scouting staff have signed and drafted for 3 years now playing together. And you've got an elite tackle in Andrew Thomas, an elite edge rusher in Brian Burns, a nucleus on defense, Kayvon Thibodeau in there, Dexter Lawrence, Fabio Carrique, Deontay Banks. The secondary is young. There's some concern there. I get that. But Detroit secondary wasn't that good last year either. The big difference is can Daniel Jones pull a Jared Goff here and just have this renaissance out of nowhere? I believe in Brian Dable, so I tend to believe in Daniel Jones. That's enough of me talking, though. You want to hear from Jim Monis. Jim, you've been critical of the Giants on this show. I'm sure you read the series. What are your thoughts on this team at this time before we get into everything NFC West?
Tyler, what's up? First of all, let's celebrate. The preseason is over. We officially can see real football. We don't have to guess who's playing, who's against the backups, who's trying this week, who's not trying. What have I told you since we've met? Do your best to block out the preseason. I want to say one thing about this before we get into the Giants. I feel like for the first time since I've been paying attention, I think the NFL coaches and front offices have aligned. I think they're bagging the preseason as well. I think I've seen less and less importance being put on it. Andy Reid, the believers, the old faithfuls, I call them, they still believe in the preseason to a point, but even they have backed off the way they used to approach it. There's usually that one game. I think they tried to find a way to get that one kind of good first quarter with the starters, let them play. But I noticed it with everybody. They're shutting down everyone right now. They have finally realized the importance is to be healthy for the playoffs. Get over the preseason. It's okay. So anyway, I'm happy it's over. I can't wait to start seeing everything for real. And now let's get into your boys, the Giants. So my critics, you mentioned that the Giants are structured correctly based on how we like to speak of the core four, but you said front office, GM, head coach, and that is correct. They are aligned there, and you didn't leave out, you brought up the final piece of that, which is all important, the quarterback. For Goff, that team aligned correctly for him where they got lockdown defense, playmakers everywhere, one of the top O lines, a running game. And that's what you have to do when you have an 18 hand in blackjack. You need everything to go else. It has to be right for you to win. And that's what you have to do. And the Lions have done it. Brad Holmes, Campbell align and build it around Goff. The Giants have built this thing for Jones. It's going to be, we've talked about this, it's going to be his best career chance to be evaluated. I still can't believe it. I feel like this is year 20 and we're still not sure about him. Where I feel he's the consistent for me is he turns the ball over and does not, and that just you can't win with that. If that changes, and it's an if, and that's where you're giving Dable credit. Hey, we know what he did with Josh Allen as far as improving Josh. I still give the players all the credit. I still think coaches can only do so much. And that's where I struggle with Daniel Jones. I just don't know if he has it. I haven't seen it. And you know how we talk about all the time. I have a tough time and I don't see it enough on tape to have that conviction to go all in. But to be honest with you, you were all in on Detroit before the masses were because you spent time out there. So you had your conviction and you have it with the Giants. You have that same feel and they have the edge rushers. They're trying to improve the defense. Their recipe is there if Daniel Jones can get it figured out turnover wise. It's really that I really believe. Now, their season total is 6.5 wins, which I've invested in. And I know you've felt good about that. We talked about it. If you can't get 7 wins, you're a bum team or you have a bum quarterback. That's real. Like if you can't get 7 wins in the NFL, you have a horrible quarterback, a horrible coach, like things aren't good. Yeah. And I see the Giants. I don't see them as a disaster as a team like that. To your point, I think they can get to 8, 9 wins. I mean, that's not asking that much. But anyway, playoffs, yeah. If Jones clicks, sure they can make the playoffs. Win the division if Jones clicks. That division can still be won. You still have a rookie in Washington. You have turmoil in Dallas. So they say. We'll get into that if you want to. And the Eagles are still kind of up in the air. I know we've talked a lot about this division, but it goes back to which team can be consistent, quarterback and head coach.
All valid points. I mean, it does come down to quarterback Daniel Jones, and we know that the Giants have reservations themselves. I mean, it is twofold. Torn ACLs, no two ACL recoveries are the same. You heard Von Miller say he shouldn't even played it down last year. There's players on the Giants who still aren't the same for their ACL. So I get Joe Shane's point on early in the offseason not knowing if Daniel Jones would be ready for training camp and needing to do your due diligence, and you're at 6 and there's all these quarterbacks. And of course, you're going to visit with those guys, get to know them and talk to Elliott Wolf. And, oh, by the way, like maybe you could have thrown a kitchen sink at Elliott Wolf and the Patriots for Drake May, or you could have stayed at 6 and had your pick of J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., or Bo Nix. That's an option as well for the Giants. So I get his point on on that, but all you clearly have some doubts yourself if you're taking it to that point because we saw it on Hard Knocks, but they didn't.
I mean,
Like they do believe in him. They did draft Malik Neighbors. They drafted the receiver for the quarterback. I mean, you know that world, Jim. I mean, with the Sammy
they
Watkins
did it.
trade, there's got to be an element of belief to double down when you take a receiver. And I think that Daniel Jones has shown it in pockets.
He
I
has.
mean, to get that team to the playoffs 2 years ago is impressive. Last year's a total disaster, but they sure hope they get the Daniel Jones in the second half against Arizona, a team we're going to talk about here. You know, he made history in that second half. And I hate making excuses, especially for quarterbacks. But man, there has been no quarterback in the NFL who has had it worse than Daniel Jones the last 6 years. I mean, you throw Joe Judge in there and Jason Garrett's offense. I mean, just an abomination offensively. And you've got Dave Gettleman picking players and signing players. And we can touch on that, the difference between that front office and this one, and actually encouraging discussion, encouraging debate, and hating groupthink. I mean, what a concept, right? Like let's have a discussion about this player. And that was not the case with Gettleman. A next scout told me you felt like you had to please him. You know, that you're just hoping to get through the day to make him happy. He didn't want to hear dissent. That is not the case with Joe Shane and the people that are running this team. So, anyways, it's a bet on the foundation that the Giants have as much as anything, with the right people picking the players and that manifesting itself over time, like it did with the Detroit Lions, and the coaching of Brian Dable, who threads that needle of being, hard on guys, yet also having authentic, real relationships with them so that he can be hard on them. We've said it here many times, but I mean, one by one, these players in Buffalo just gush when it comes to Brian Dable, and that relationship with Josh Allen was special. I mean, that could have been a Super Bowl connection, multiple Super Bowl connection. And players feel that was real. So I'm betting on that. And the players around, they drafted wide receivers the last 3 years, which you should do. It's cost controlled. Their top three receivers there between Neighbors, Hyatt, and Wando Robinson, they're making 8.8 million this year. And then you look at receivers making 30 mil. That's smart planning out of the GM. I feel like there's a tipping point coming. It's instinctual, and it's that same kind of feeling I had around those Lions last year. Maybe it's not a run to the NFC Championship game, but I think 10 wins, playoffs, a division title potentially, all extremely possible for the New York Giants this season.
100% agree. They said they made a decision that May was a guy they were convicted on, that they would take a chance on, knowing regardless, this was going to be Daniel Jones's prove it year if they took May or not. Like, I really believe that. This was going to be Jones's prove it year. Let's see what you got. And they said, we can't get May. That was our favorite guy. All right, let's get Neighbors. That was their favorite quarterback. Let's get our best weapon. And now, once again, you're supporting your quarterback on his prove it year. It's your prove it year. And you're right. This is his best chance. I mean, I could sit there and say, I don't think it should take 3 years to build up an offensive line. In year 3, you finally done it. I mean, I think that's a pretty quick. I think GMs can turn around those lines quick with the right coach and the right talent. Joe did draft a first round player that can't play, Evan Neal. So he tried and missed. So he did, he
Unlike
did hurt
Penei
himself.
Sewell in Detroit, right? There's a big difference.
So once again, like we talked about, build it up front because you got to support give these quarterbacks best chance. So I'm with you. I mean, this is it for Jones. We all know it. Now, I will say this. It's hard not to get caught up in the X clips preseason of Neighbors. The dog is real. Like, I saw it at LSU. I mean, he and Harrison were by far the two best receivers I had graded, which that's not a revelation. That was pretty much everybody. I thought that was accurate. I thought Harrison and Neighbors were the best. There wasn't a huge gap between them. They were that close. Everybody's saying it, but it's true. The gap comes after those two, how you have them shake up. I actually had Brian Thomas as the third ranked receiver who's in Jacksonville. Anyway, point being is they were on the same team, Thomas and Neighbors. You saw the dog at LSU. You see the dog in practice almost daily. Those catches aren't like, they're not fake catches that, we joke about the preseason. Those are the clips you can take away to say, okay, there are not a lot of people that can make those catches.
I think this is where it comes full circle too, in terms of us always throwing cold water on the preseason. And I got to stop saying preseason because
Yeah.
Bob McGinn, he hates that term. He says that's an overly sanitized NFL created word. It was always exhibition season, exhibition games. That's
Love
what
it.
they are. The
100%.
preseason gives it a little too much credence.
There you go. I wish I would have known that before. From here on out, exhibition scrimmages.
Yes. And here's what matters more: joint practices with the Detroit
100%.
Lions, getting shoved around by those Lions 1 year ago, not getting shoved around this year. And as Brian Dable detailed himself, I mean, they ran way more 11 on 11, full go, team reps than they did a year ago. I got the number here. 1 second. The Giants ran 140 more snaps of 11 on 11 this training camp versus last year. And if you factor in OTAs and minicamp, they ran 500 more 11 on 11 snaps than last year. And this is in, 95-degree heat. It's sweltering. You're miserable. You're pissed. I mean, that's the kind of player they're trying to find and create and build on.
So
that it matters.
It matters. I love that you were able to make that correlation because you saw it firsthand with Detroit. Because if you can get your players to buy into that, if we will, this joint practice, take this serious, just give me everything. I'm not playing you this weekend in the game. We have 2 weeks basically from the last preseason or exhibition scrimmage till the first game. You have plenty of time. I'm going to get you rested. Give me an unbelievable effort today. And guess what? What great athlete doesn't want to compete against a great athlete one-on-one in practice? They don't care if it's on TV or from those guys are going to get after it. I've seen it my whole life. After we won the Super Bowl in New Orleans, we went up that year after the White House. It was late. The visit was in like July or August. We went and visited the White House, and then we went up to Foxborough to practice against the Patriots. And it was so intense. Like it gave me the first time I realized, like, man, camp is nothing. Like these guys want to compete against each other. They want to beat each other no matter what. So yes, joint practices, that's where you get your evaluation.
And they had joint practices with the New York Jets as well.
I wanted to say too, it seemed like the Giants, you may know this more, the Giants seemed to place a pretty heavy importance on that joint practice with Detroit because of the previous year. And I think that's really good for a coach to establish, hey, I don't like the way that shit went down last year. Like, we're better than that. Let's come out, let's show our improvement just by the way we work and the way we look in practice, not a game. And I hate saying that because that's the old Allen Iverson thing. I always have a hard time saying that word sometimes without thinking of Iverson. But it's true. You need some. It's the give back. Give me the good practice. I'll get it back to you. I think that's what the Giants have found this year.
So thank you, everybody out there who has taken the time to read our 3-part series. Again, if you're just listening to the podcast, you're on our free subscription list. A great time to upgrade and get a subscription between this 3-parter on the Giants, dissecting everything, top to bottom, front office, coaching staff, players. Even if you're not a Giants fan, I think you'll find it very insightful. And also Michael McCambridge's excellent 3-part series on the Chiefs gunning for a 3-peat. We just had a podcast. Check that conversation out if you haven't. Still got some more coming too, Jim. I was around the Cleveland Browns for a week, which may be the most talented roster in the NFL. That front office has done an amazing job. Asterisk symbol around the quarterback.
That's what I was just
Again, if the quarterback clicks into place, what is this team? And I think there's probably a few more questions around Deshaun Watson than even Daniel Jones.
It seems lazy sometimes to sit there and say quarterback head coach, but it's just the honest truth. Like it just seems lazy, but it is true. Like I was laughing when you were just talking about the Browns this year because if Watson is Watson, that roster is legit.
Which kind of brings us to this division where we've got.
I'm not buying into Watson yet. I'm not buying into Danny Jones yet, but
I was gonna say your face on my Zoom, it just froze when you said that. So it was very applicable. You haven't bought into these guys as the face freezes. It's probably in my internet here, but we're,
No,
we're
you're
gonna
good. We're
power
good now.
through.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to a division that is not devoid of quarterback, or is not full of quarterback questions. The NFC West. Brock Purdy will be the richest quarterback, the richest player in NFL history very soon, which is nuts. Mr. Irrelevant will be making 60 mil a year. The Los
Brock
Angeles
Purdy lost
Rams,
to
they
Tommy
won the Super
DeVito.
Bowl.
I mean, Jordan Love lost to DeVito,
Yeah, he did.
highest paid player in history. All right. Anyway, yes. Sorry, I got distracted. I can't talk quarterback money anymore. It's
Matt, yeah, we're
become.
done with that.
All right, go ahead.
Matt
Sorry,
Stafford
sorry.
did win a Super Bowl not too long ago, and that was a team last year, that wild card game against Detroit. If they, man, they win that game, they really could have been in the Super Bowl, and that was supposed to be a transition year, right? Like this was supposed to be a year where it was Aaron Donald and a bunch of nobodies on defense. You're breaking in a rookie wide receiver on offense, running back. The last few years, it seems like you never know who in the hell is going to carry the ball in Sean McVay's offense. Instead, they're damn good, and they may be ready to springboard into that championship conversation. Seattle's got to be feeling pretty good about itself, and Arizona, a sneaky team that I know you want to get into. So NFC West, Jim Monis, where do we start?
Well, do we always start top down?
Let's do it.
So they've clearly been the Kings. The 49ers have been the Kings. We talked about Purdy forever on this since he's been on the scene. How I just saw Drew Brees right away in him. Just that style of brilliance and accuracy and running the offense to perfection. But now things have gotten real for San Fran, where they had some opportunities, didn't get over the hump. And now they have some injuries, contract issues, all the stuff that creeps around, distractions that can take away from your dominance. When you study this division, which I did with the stats, they just dominate. They are so much better than every team. Roster wise, in all the key stats, they're a complete roster, team, everything. But for the first time, Tyler, I'm seeing hiccups. Trent Williams isn't there. Ayuk's not there. We know all that. That's distraction. Is Purdy, this is his next step. Is he going to elevate again? Can he take another level to get the team even better if the other things aren't in place, like Ayuk and Trent Williams? That's on the quarterback to make up for that. I don't know if he has that in him. We're going to find out. We know he has enough in him when everything's right. Defensively, they got to prove it. They've been dominant again on defense, but let's do it. It's you can't just assume things are going to stay the same. I never like that in the NFL. And we know the history of staying on top is hard. I just think when you're on top and you had chances, now I'm looking for who's getting closer to you, who's coming to take your throne. You're at the top of that mountain. They're still to me the best roster. I just feel like I for the first time see some glitches where other teams can sneak in now. How do you feel about the 49ers?
Right. I hesitate because I'm wondering when people are listening to this podcast where the Brandon Ayuk situation is. And there's two
Right.
different ways to deal with a wide receiver who's unhappy, and they're not all the same. In Buffalo with Stephon Diggs, he makes it clear he doesn't want to play for you. You just gave him a contract extension 2 years ago. You could tell him, tough, you're playing, play hardball. So it's not apples to apples here, but the Bills decided to clean break, eat the money this year, move on, reinvent the team around Josh Allen for several reasons. You can sprinkle in playoff disappointments, the drop, wanting guys to go into that playoff moment without scars, like Brandon Beane said. At the end of the day, Stephon Diggs is unbelievably talented. We had Texans beat writer DJ Bieneme on last week, and he said Stephon Diggs is going to be the number one receiver in that offense. He thinks he'll get more targets than anybody. Wouldn't be surprised if he has a big year. So all these receivers are really, really talented. So when they're unhappy, what do you do with them? If John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan just decided to play hardball, and Ayuk wants a contract. It's not necessarily him wanting out. It's kind of the opposite. The 49ers are like, okay, you want a new contract? we don't necessarily want to give you that contract because we can get one more really good year out of you at that number with everybody else that we paid, with Brock Purdy's contract down the pipe. We've got a Super Bowl window open. Like, let's let's play. How far do you want to take this, right? Like, let's take go, Cleveland, New England, Pittsburgh. Like, is there a situation out there where getting a little bit more money? I don't know the difference in I don't think anybody knows the hardcore numbers of this all, but is it worth taking more money in a different situation that isn't this here? Like, they're kind of just letting them, like, all right, you want to go play the field a little bit? You want to go on a few dates? Get a feel for it, knock yourself out. It's really good here, and you'll get paid eventually. I don't know how this is going to end. I really don't. I'm surprised it hasn't been resolved, but am I getting the correct read on this, Jim?
Well, my favorite part of this whole thing is we love you so much. With the first round selection, the 49ers select from the University of Florida receiver, who I love, but guess what? Can't get healthy. So the rookie hit some injury bugs, which now gives Ayuk a little bit of some leverage because they were prepared for this. They were ready. They, like I always say, as soon as you sign your contract or we draft you, we are trying to find your replacement. And that's just the honest truth. So they still need them. They still want them. They'll, like you said, I don't know the details on the money, but I love how that's where they were going to ship them to.
Right, New England, which, man,
I mean, like
the juxtaposition of Bill
yes.
Belichick to be the greatest coach ever and
Wow.
so horrible when it comes to talent acquisition as a personnel exec.
Like,
Gerard Mayo came out and said that Drake May played better than Jacoby Brissett, and then he names Jacoby Brissett the starter. It's completely out of fear. I mean, they're just terrified of damaging their rookie quarterback beyond repair, and it's all because of the roster that Belichick left Elliott Wolf here. It's a bad team.
Tyler, the owner had a chance when you're moving on from a legend. You have a chance to you could do a search. You could talk to the legend Belichick about who would you think would be some guys we should interview, or possibly how do you see this thing going? Personnel as well, because he knows people. They went and took Elliott Wolf, promoted from within, and they promoted from within coaching. Belichick, I don't know if he signs off on those guys. My point of this is Mayo qualified to what has he done with a rookie quarterback in his career? I mean, the recipe for success is scary for May right now to make it. No O-line, rookie head coach with no offensive background, and a rookie front office guy who comes from the family of it. So Elliott knows all the rules and the backgrounds and all the lingo, but I don't worry about Elliott acquiring talent. I worry about, is Mayo qualified to bring along May?
I don't know much about Gerard Mayo, admittedly. I really don't.
Who does?
It is strange. I mean, you don't.
Didn't they have his son calling the defense? Belichick's son was calling the defense,
right?
Or wasn't he? I don't know. I'm asking more. You don't know is the point.
Well, I feel like there really wasn't enough pushback on this succession plan. It was just, all right, Bill Belichick's out, Gerard Mayo's in, no further questions.
That's my point. It was like,
I mean, why not, have a robust process to hire the best head coach of a team that's lorded over the NFL the last 24 years? Like, I guess if I was a Patriot fan, I'd want, maybe a full interview process with several candidates like everybody else.
That's how dysfunctional it must have been there, where the owner and head coach just had their complete split. And, there was just no relationship there anymore. Out the door.
So San Francisco, they've got some distractions here. We'll see how it works out. I think that they do take a step back. I think that the Los Angeles Rams are ready to make their move with this roster. And McVay and Shanahan, they probably know each other better than they know themselves schematically. Like, what is that next innovation that one of them comes up with in that matchup? I don't know. Like, do you have any thoughts? Like, is there a player? Is there an evolution on the offensive side of the ball out of either coach, either team you think could determine?
I think the Rams have 100%. I love leading right into the Rams. I love that running back Williams. Like, they they have made the evolution to help out an aging veteran, just professional, awesome, tough quarterback. Hey, on your last year, possibly, or 2 years, or whenever he's on Stafford's got to be close. They have a running back. That is huge right now. I see it with college football this past weekend with Georgia Tech and Florida State. Both teams were running the football. It was an actual watchable college football game. I can see the running game. I know you're a fan of this. I think it's going to make its way back a little bit. I'm always, you and I are believers in it. Where I'm talking about it, I think it's sneaking more into where teams are going to really rely on to help out more and not just use it as the fourth quarter if you're a good team to run out the clock, where you can establish it, help out Stafford. Point being, I think the Rams can take this division because of coach, quarterback, front office, GM, 4 core in place, ready to roll.
Yeah,
I feel good about their core 4 in this division as number 1. Core 4. 49ers to me still need, I know that front office is GM and head coach are synced up. The ownership's good. Purdy, I love Purdy. Are we sure about Shanahan, Purdy, Lynch? Is that whole thing synced up good enough? I think it is. You may have 2 teams with core 4 is what I'm saying probably. Both teams are capable of winning the Super Bowl. I just think the Rams have a shot with Stafford right now on his way out, possibly next year or 2. You know how serious he's going to take this.
Well, they got Stetson Bennett waiting in the wings.
He won the job. He won the back. Oh, Tyler, that's a whole other pot if you want to do backup quarterback day. My goodness. I don't even know what to say about those guys. They are hired car crash dummies right now.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're getting hired in the NFL exhibition scrimmages to come in for 3 weeks, get your head beat in. Thanks for playing. See you. Every player in the UFL was in the league. They had 70 some guys, I think, get signed. I think 2 made it, a kicker and a D tackle. So point being is the NFL is just looking for, I don't want to say crash car dummies. That's maybe too harsh, but you know my point. They're looking for bodies to get through camp.
And really forget how good Stafford was last year. He missed a couple of starts.
That's what I'm saying. They can win a Super Bowl. He's playing on that level for sure.
4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, and they were 3-6. You remember they had that ugly game at Lambeau Field. They lose with Brett Rippon, and they just catch fire. I just
saw his name pop up too. He just signed with somebody. He's still pouncing. Somebody pulled him off an island. Yeah, somebody just got him today. He has a little flair going, pretty good. My third team though in this division. Are you feel good Rams too? Or possibly
I guess one last point on the Rams. I think
go ahead.
Aaron Donald is going to be a loss. One of the greatest defensive players in NFL history. But even there, they drafted the D lineman last year. They draft some this year. Brandon Fisk, Jared Verse, teammates at Florida State. I wouldn't be surprised if a Jared Verse is a defensive rookie of the year in this scheme.
If
the way he'll be
now, that's a whole. If they hit on that type
playing
of
with
player,
leads,
correct. That elevates. If they hit on something like that, then that takes them possibly right over San Fran.
That's going to be the key. Is defensively, how do you make up for Aaron Donald 4th quarter, 3rd down? You just know he's gonna somehow will himself to the quarterback and make a play. From that position, nobody came close to that kind of impact.
49ers are not one of the best teams offensively up front. Trent Williams isn't there. They already are shaky up front without Trent, even with Trent Williams. So you can get to Purdy, and that's the kryptonite for any quarterback. You get to a quarterback, it's a wrap. The Rams can get to Purdy.
All right, let's hear your third team, Mr. Moses.
Third team is going to be Arizona, not Seattle. And we'll get into this.
All right, I like it. Let's hear it. What do you like about Arizona?
I am going with the fact that team bought into that coach last year when they were complete garbage at the start of that season. They looked awful, but they never strayed. That shows you they bought in. So now you have my attention. The head coach. Now I'm looking at the quarterback. You got Kyler Murray. Now, do I think he is completely inconsistent and frustrating to watch? Yes. He is an absolute headache to watch on tape because you love what you see and you hate so much that you see. But there was no defensive coordinator that wants to play against him. Oh, and guess who they added? The best receiver in the draft, in my opinion, who we haven't seen a lot of X clips. Exhibition season hasn't been real friendly to our man Harrison, so I hope he's not a bust yet. But point being is they connect and they bought into this coach, and you have a veteran, tough running back in Connor, who I love that Connor isn't. Look, one thing about Connor, he's big, slow, all that stuff you want to criticize in a combine. And I was critical of Connor coming out as far as how good can this guy be, because I just thought he was a one-speed battering ram. Well, we always talk about it. You can't measure heart toughness. It's a cliche, but it's true. And he is such a professional heart tough. No player on that team, you can't go out on that field with Connor and not give it your best. Like everybody raises their game because Connor is on the field. That's the type of command, respect, and leadership he has for what he's going through in his life. You can look up his story later if you don't know it. But anyway, point being is I like the unknown. I like that we don't hear a lot about this team, and they have a dynamic quarterback. I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to be a headache and could sneak up on people this year. There's always a team that goes worst to first in a division every year. This would be my pick as a team that maybe could surprise and make a run and win this division out of nowhere. I think they could sneak in the playoffs, but a long shot pick, a fun bet, Arizona maybe to win the division. Go ahead, have at it.
I like it. I like it. Quietly, too.
And I don't even like Murray that much.
I mean, Paris Johnson, left tackle. Then you sign Jonah Williams. I mean, you can talk yourself into the line being pretty good. And Marvin Harrison being a star. James Conner really being the heartbeat of your team, and a back who is, he'll have a game that ages well. He, like you said, he was never breakaway fast.
Not a thing.
But I look at the depth chart offensively, defensively, and I still think that this team is like a year or two away. Like we were talking about the Giants earlier on really needing time to replenish a roster. Like it was a really bad roster, even when they were with Cliff Kingsbury racing to 6-0, 7-1. Eventually depth concerns and a lack of talent and some poor coaching sprinkled in there. Like Steve Keim did a very bad job in the front office. So like I think they know they've got to do a ton of work with this roster. And this is a game of attrition. You're going to have injuries. It's inevitable. I can just see Arizona as being one of those teams that, I mean, look at their receivers beyond Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Like Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, Chris Moore, Xavier Weaver. I mean, have a drink if you know any of those names. You'll probably be bone cold sober. I mean, Trey McBride's your tight end. He'll be a factor.
He's legit.
He's really good. But a couple injuries. I know Budda Baker, star safety. He's getting. I was gonna say he's getting older.
Yeah, he's getting older. Tyler, if I want to be real, if you want to hear the real part, they have some serious holes on defense. I'm scared.
Lots of holes. Lots of holes.
But I think they can cause you some headaches on offense, sneak up on you. You got to show up. Now, the head coach is a defensive coach, correct?
Yeah. Jonathan Gannon.
So let's see the impact that maybe he has on a defense. We've seen it in Buffalo through injuries and losses, no matter what, free agency, whatever, bad draft picks. McDermott doesn't blink. They're good every year on defense. Trey White's gone. We're still good. Ed Oliver's not a real impact first round pick. We get rid of Edmonds. Doesn't matter. We're still good. Like they are. That's what I'm saying. Maybe the defense, maybe they bought in enough. And I've seen that with defensive systems. Like, but at some point you need a star. You got to have playmakers on both sides. Anyway, that was my fun. That's my kind of long shot pick, Tyler. But the realistic is, I don't know if they've closed that gap defensively in the division to catch the Rams and Niners. But I'm betting on Murray and Harrison being dynamic.
It's a great point, though, on Jonathan Gannon. I mean, think about the Philadelphia Eagles defense in 2022 versus 2023, just with losing their coordinator. I mean, they absolutely fell apart. And, he was made fun of, on the old X this time last year. And I think I always like it when somebody who's an easy whipping boy on social media and We probably poked fun at it too. Remember, he looked like Kendall Roy up there giving the
I'm pretty
speech.
sure we did.
It was
Yeah.
a little awkward, a little
Like
strange.
just awkward. Good word.
And the
Awkward's a good
pea
word.
shooters with Kyler Murray, little strange. But that doesn't mean like he's a bad coach. That's the thing. Like just because somebody might be awkward in a video of the team, it doesn't mean that he doesn't know how to game plan for these quarterbacks that you face week in and week out. He knows what he's doing with this lack of talent. So, if they can put together some good drafts, maybe they can step into the ring with LA and San Francisco in 2025. That's about as exciting as I can get around.
Okay, I appreciate you entertaining it. I would like to enter a new segment for our pod, if you wouldn't mind, as we're speaking. I think it'd be important for us to always bring up any team we speak about to at least mention who their backup quarterback currently is. It always helps because I'm looking at this division. I thought it'd be a fun, quick exercise. Ready?
Yes.
49ers, number one backup, Josh Dobbs, like that. Rams, our second pick, backup, Stetson Bennett. Ooh, a little shaky there. Could prevent them. Arizona, we just talked about my man Clayton Tune from Houston. He is kind of newer on this eye. He hasn't really spent a lot of time on backup island yet. He's too young to have been cut and signed a lot. But he's a little unknown. So I like that.
Well on his way.
Now we might have the best backup in the division coming up here in Seattle, Sam Howell.
I like it.
Okay, let's lead into Seattle. They have possibly the best backup in Sam Howell. Here's my issue with Seattle. I'll just say it and then you can speak morally on them. I just think they have the worst quarterback in the division. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave it at that. I don't think you can win the division with the worst quarterback in the division. So there's
Gino's he's a perplexing one. I mean, they've gone 9-8
doesn't mean he's not good.
Back years.
I don't want to say that he's not a good football player. That division obviously has loaded quarterback play, and he is simply the worst of the four.
Agreed. And I like Geno Smith. He turned his career around with this team at that time. Just he was on backup quarterback island for a decade, it seemed. He was finished. And here he is. They win 9 games back-to-back years, but that just strikes me as this team's ceiling with this quarterback. There's a lot to love about the Seattle Seahawks. The defensively, the way they've been drafting.
Mm-hmm. Devin Witherspoon. I like that rookie head coach who his history looks pretty good. I'm excited to see that. And they have the worst quarterback in the division.
It's hard to get past that.
I mean, I hate to say it. I'm with you on Seattle. I believe everything you're saying is right. John Schneider is one of the best GMs in the NFL. He has been for however long he's been there. I mean, they're good, consistent. They hit the goal every year. They're consistently relevant.
Reek Woolen, right? Big throwback corner to their Richard Sherman days. Like you don't see corner 6'4".
Exactly. They stay consistent to how they draft.
Tyrell Dotson, middle backer, a former guest of the Go Long podcast. He's going to be roaming that defense. So they sign him from Buffalo. Jerome Baker comes in from Miami. Leonard Williams still there. That's the wild thing about this division. I mean, all 4 teams in the NFC, especially, which is so wide open, could be in the mix, right? In the hunt on the graphic, right around Thanksgiving, all of that.
Usually, depends where you're at on that. If you're in the hunt, usually means it's.
I think, all right, here's the player for the Seahawks. Jackson Smith-Njigba. You draft him in the first round. Oh. He's working inside DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I feel like he's the key to this whole thing. Like you drafted him that high to be a difference maker. I mean, you're going to have opportunities in the slot.
They have talent. They have talent. It's a good division. I think we are saying that. We're not really knocking. Yeah. I'm really not knocking Seattle or Arizona if they come in last place in this division. This is a real division. Like you're talking about.
I know, and it's like Geno is the worst, but I'm not anti-Geno. There's a play here and there that will pop up of him just stepping in to the pocket and ripping it in the tight coverage. He's got guts. He'll throw it downfield.
And honestly, you could make a debate that he's every bit as good as Kyler because Kyler's still inconsistent too.
Right.
So yeah, he is. He has his moments where you can't win with him playing the way he plays sometimes.
How about
So
this
yeah,
question? Arizona at Buffalo, week 1. Is it upset alert for the Buffalo Bills?
what a great first game for Bobby Babich as a new defensive coordinator. Hey, welcome to the league. Go ahead and defend Kyler Murray. So yes, I like this as upset alert. I think Arizona has every opportunity to win this game. Anytime you have two teams that don't play each other much, aren't familiar with each other, there isn't a huge library to say you don't have this background and knowledge of going against these coaches and players twice a year or once a year in your conference. Out of conference game, if you lose it first game of the season, I hate to say this, it means nothing. It will never come up in a tiebreaker for Buffalo. It's, you know what I'm saying? It won't hurt you if you lose it. Not that they want to lose it. What I'm saying is Buffalo has some injuries right now. They have some question marks on defense, a new coordinator calling the game. Arizona does not. They have a team coming fresh with it. You know what I mean? They're kind of the more, we can't wait to play with our new players, our staff. We've been here now. We know the offense. We know the defense. I just think it's upset alert for Buffalo. Yeah, sure, they can win. I just think it's going to be a tricky, scary game. I took the 6.5 when it was at 6.5. I know it went down a little bit, the spread, but I think Arizona can pull this one out.
Coming from
Oh,
a
I'm pro
perennial
Buffalo too.
Buffalo
Yeah,
Bills.
I do think Buffalo can win the Super Bowl this year. I just think they might
Yeah.
lose first game. Mm-hmm.
Which is, I remember doing a podcast with you 2 years ago and again last year on overreactions to week 1, right?
Oh,
Remember
especially
Green
now.
Bay getting their brains beat in by the Saints, Jameis Winston, and then they turned it
Oh,
around.
I didn't remember until you just brought it up. Like, yeah, you're right.
It just
Proves the
popped in my
point.
head. I almost completely forgot about that game. There's always a game like that. It goes both ways. I mean, hell, I remember your Buffalo Bills, Andrew Luck and the Colts coming in, right? And they're off of a big season. They're loaded with weapons. I'm thinking the Colts are going to have a day. And man, Rex's defense, that was a shining moment for that crew. Flying all over the place, throwback jerseys. That stadium's going nuts. The Guinness Book of World Records, they're on site for the next game, the next week against New England, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't go as planned. Things just change week to week. I will say though, even that New England game, they were blowing you guys out. And remember, Belichick just kept throwing and throwing, and you guys got back in. I want to say it was a 1-score game.
A couple memories are coming to mind right now. You're bringing back some things,
Right.
but I'm thinking about basically how you summed up that was our time with Rex. It's like we'd win a game. I swear I thought we were going to win the Super Bowl, and the next week it looked like we might pick first in the draft.
That was that week 1 to week 2 that season.
It really
sure.
was, and it goes back to I hate to say it, but consistency is what separates everybody in the NFL. Superstars, all of it, right? And we were roller coaster. That's
it was
why I'm
just
just
too
laughing
high and too
about
low
that.
with Rex.
Too
Like I
high
can
and too
remember his
low.
press conference ahead of that Patriots game. Remember what he did at his presser?
What was that one? You'll remember. Tell me. Was that the Clemson?
So
That wasn't.
I'm paraphrasing. No, it wasn't the Clemson helmet. It was. I'm gonna find the box score here, but it was
Son was on the team.
LeGarrette Blunt. I think LeGarrette Blunt was like banged up or something. And Rex is like, oh, Blunt's their running back. Blunt's gonna play. I'm not buying anything. He goes, I don't even know the name of the other guy. In so many words, like I don't even know who the other running back is. And I want to say it was Dion Lewis. And Dion Lewis
from Pitt. You're right.
had a huge play,
You're
busted
exactly
coverage.
Right.
Nigel
You're
Bradham,
exactly right.
Preston Brown talked about it
Mm-hmm.
on the happy hour a few weeks back, and
good. Yep.
like he had the play of the game, of course.
Great memory, Dion Lewis.
Man, I might be
Shady.
fusing some memories with that team from time to time.
No, that was a good one.
It was just high and low. You got to stay
low.
even keeled. The season's too long. All right, that's gonna do it for a little NFC West, a little New York Giants, and a little Rex Ryan. Final thoughts, Jim.
Final thoughts, just to follow up on backup island. We did talk a lot about the Giants. Do you know who their 2 backup quarterbacks are? A lot of teams only keep 1 backup. I know you're going to know this, but they kept both of them.
Tommy DeVito, Tommy
so
Salami.
They they couldn't package. They can't get DeVito to somebody. Anyway, I love this backup quarterback talk.
I like 3 quarterbacks making a team. I want 3 quarterbacks in that room. Three's a company.
Well, it's tricky now with rosters. I mean, I feel like practice squads, you have like 20 guys on practice squads, and there's like a new third quarterback rule. I mean, there's so many ways around things. So yeah, Tyler, the issue with backup island is a lot of the guys are the same. All the tans are looking the same. And we're just pulling people off the island. You got to separate yourself to really keep 2 quarterbacks. You got to separate yourself. DeVito and Drew Lock, same guy. That helicopter, whichever one jumps off first off the island, you take it. You're getting the same thing.
I just think back to what people in that Bears building said about that 3 quarterback room when it was Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, and Nick Foles, and there was just all sorts of bad blood. It's in the Bears series if people missed it, but like Nick Foles is trying to help Fields, and Fields wants nothing to do with it, doesn't want to hear it, and Foles is like, "All right, f this." It was ugly. That's like the if there was a raw Hard Knocks that could not be editorialized or edited, I should say, by the team. I want a quarterback room that is dysfunctional as hell, and I want to see that day to day. That'd be fun.
That is a room. I mean, that's when you're putting together a team. I don't know how you feel
Right,
good about
Deshaun
that.
Kaiser, right? He said how Aaron Rodgers is asking him if he believes in 9/11. Delve into some conspiracy theories.
You got to have a good room.
Yeah.
That a starter can't have craziness.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And thank you, as always, for reading at golongtd.com. All sorts of stuff up there for you. We'll catch you next week with some more division by division pods, which, the season's going to be here before we know it. So we'll get going on those. Thanks, everyone.